On the 22nd of June, 1941, the largest invasion force in human history crossed into the Soviet Union. More than 3 million soldiers, thousands of tanks, a front stretching almost 2,000 miles from the Arctic to the Black Sea. Adolf Hitler believed he would crush the Soviet Union in a matter of weeks. He told his generals, "We have only to kick in the door, and the whole rotten structure will come crashing down." He was catastrophically wrong, and the reasons why are a masterclass in how the most powerful army on earth can destroy itself. Let's break down what really happened. By the summer of 1941, Germany dominated Europe. France had fallen. Britain stood alone across the Channel. So why did Hitler turn east and attack the massive Soviet Union, opening a second front? Two reasons: ideology and resources. Hitler wanted living space in the east, and he wanted the Soviet Union's oil, grain, and raw materials to fuel his war machine. The plan was built on one enormous assumption, that the war would be short. Germany would use blitzkrieg lightning war to encircle and destroy the Red Army near the border before the Soviets could retreat, regroup, or use their vast size to their advantage. The whole campaign was supposed to be over before winter. 3 giant army groups attacked at once: north toward Leningrad, center toward Moscow, and south toward the farmland and oil of Ukraine. Everything depended on speed. And at first, it worked terrifyingly well. The Soviets were caught off guard. In the opening weeks, the German army surrounded entire Soviet armies in enormous pockets. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers were captured at a time. At Kiev alone, the encirclement trapped a staggering number of defenders, one of the largest single captures in the history of warfare. German tanks raced hundreds of miles into Soviet territory. On the map, it looked like total victory. Newspapers in Berlin announced the war in the east was as good as won. But here is the first lesson. On a map, Germany was winning. In reality, something was quietly breaking, because the deeper they advanced, the longer their supply lines became, and the bigger the country in front of them seemed to grow. This is the part that every strategist should study. Germany did not just have to beat the Red Army, it had to beat distance. The Soviet Union was simply enormous, far larger than anything the German military had ever crossed. Their tanks and trucks needed fuel, spare parts, and ammunition, hauled across thousands of miles of poor roads. The German army still relied heavily on horses for supply, and the Soviet railways used a different track width than European ones, so every mile of captured railroad had to be rebuilt before German trains could use it. So the second lesson is this: an army is only as fast as its supply lines. The tanks at the front could only go as far as the fuel behind them allowed, and that fuel was falling further and further behind. Then came the third problem, the one Hitler refused to believe. The Soviet Union did not collapse. Stalin's government moved entire factories east, beyond the reach of German bombers, and kept building tanks. For every Soviet army that was destroyed, another seemed to appear. Germany had planned for a short war against a brittle enemy. Instead, it got a long war against a country that simply would not break. And there was a fourth blow, a self-inflicted one. In the middle of the campaign, Hitler diverted his strongest forces away from Moscow to capture Ukraine. It won a huge victory at Kiev, but it cost weeks of precious time. Time that, with winter coming, Germany did not have. By autumn, the rains turned the dirt roads into seas of mud that swallowed trucks and tanks. The advance slowed to a crawl. And then the temperature dropped. The German army, expecting to win before winter, had not been equipped for the Russian cold. Soldiers froze in summer uniforms. Engines and weapons failed in the freezing air. Tens of thousands suffered frostbite. In December 1941, just miles from Moscow, the exhausted German advance finally stopped. And then the Soviets, with fresh troops brought from the east and built for winter warfare, struck back and pushed them away from the capital. The blitzkrieg had failed. The short war Hitler promised had become exactly the thing Germany could not win. A long war on a vast front against an enemy with endless space and endless reserves. Operation Barbarossa was the largest military operation ever launched, and it was the moment Nazi Germany doomed itself. The lesson echoes far beyond 1941. Power is not just strength on a map. It is logistics, it is time, and it is the dangerous confidence that your enemy is weaker than they really are. Germany defeated army after army and still lost because it never beat the two things it never planned for: distance and winter. From this frozen failure, the road led directly to a city on the Volga, where the German army would meet its most famous disaster. But the next chapter of this war is something even larger, the greatest tank battle ever fought, Kursk. Subscribe, and we'll see you there.